When one hears the name Gucci, thoughts are often conjured up of luxury goods like purses and belts and clothing. And Gucci has certainly made a name for itself as a luxury goods maker. But 50 years ago, or 50 plus years ago, in the 1970s, Gucci was looking to break into the U.S. market a little bit more than it was at the time. And so they thought, well, I guess we'll pair ourselves with an automobile company to try to get some incremental name recognition. Now, there was a Gucci Cadillac Seville that would come around in the late 1970s, and let's just say that it was a rather tacky affair with Gucci print vinyl top as well as Gucci print on the headliner and the interior. And buyers bought it, apparently. But before there was the Gucci Seville, there was another luxury car, we'll call it luxury for the purposes of this video, that bore the Gucci name, and that was the Hornet Sportabout bore the Gucci name. For an extra $141 on a $2,500 base car, you could get a Gucci Hornet. And we're going to take a look at this 1973 Gucci Hornet Sportabout wagon. Now, if you're a little bit confused about the particular vehicle you're seeing being labeled a luxury car, well, you're not alone. Even I'm a bit confused by myself calling it that, as the Hornet was really a rather pedestrian car that was introduced in 1970 by American Motors, and it was supposed to be basically transportation, or let's call it basic transportation. It was a good-looking car overall. You can see this wagon is pretty handsome. Has some nice wheel arches, relatively clean body sides. Don't know about the fitment of the panels. That was something that was always an AMC Achilles heel. But the Hornet in basic form lived all the way on into the mid to late 1980s as the AMC Eagle. And it was continuing production until AMC was acquired by Chrysler at that point. So it was a long-lived platform, and like I said, it was a relatively pedestrian affair, but quite functional. Now, this particular Hornet Sportabout is, as I said, a Gucci trim model. And what does that mean? Well, clearly, unlike the Seville, there's no Gucci print vinyl roof here, but there is a highly tasteful interior, and let's take a look at that right now. Wow, and this tells you all you need to know. So when you pay that extra $141 to get your Gucci interior trim, take a look at what you received. This exclusive seat, let's say, design that was outfitted in white, green, and reddish-orange vinyl. And not only did you get that on the seats, you also got it on the door panels there. It's very tasteful. Now, I do think it's somewhat of an oxymoron to see this Italian flag kind of style print on the door panel right next to a manual window crank. I guess it's not totally Italian flaggy. It should be more red than reddish orange, but who's counting? But you certainly got the green interior with the green carpet, green B-pillars, A-pillars, and you can also see in this photo the headliner that has that Gucci print fabric, similar to what was on the Gucci vinyl roof of the Seville. Now, the rest of this interior was pretty standard Hornet fare. You can see the round gauge pods up front, the headlamp and wiper control off to the left, the little package shelf down there, as well as this one has, I believe, the optional 3-spoke steering wheel, which is pretty tasteful and kind of looks like it's a racing affair. So you can drive around in speed with your Hornet. And for a closer look at the seats as well as the headliner, you can take a look here. Notice that it's perforated vinyl in that white section, so it is actually breathable. That was nice. It's pretty rare on AMCs to have that. They did have a lot of vinyl interior seating, but the overall seat design is the same. It's kind of standard AMC. No armrests either up front in your Gucci Hornet Sportabout, so your right arm, if you're the driver, is just going to have to dangle or stay on the steering wheel. And you did get the standard AMC armrest, that kind of short, stubby length armrest that was somewhat soft, somewhat firm. Well, I would just say that this wasn't an overly luxurious interior. So what in the world was AMC thinking? Well, remember, this was the time where AMC was trying to get a little bit of pizzazz in their interior. So they had the Levi's Gremlin interior, the Pierre Cardin Javelin interior, this Gucci interior in the Hornet. And, well, I think they were modestly successful with executing this. And I think what they were trying to do is kind of capture, in terms of the Gucci interior, a bit more female buyers, because Gucci had some more name recognition with the female buyers, And it also just helped broaden the name recognition overall. So it was a mutually beneficial decision for AMC and Gucci. Now, according to Vince Geraci, who was a AMC interior designer at the time, I believe he even led AMC Interiors, the interiors were not just designed by AMC and then thrown over the wall to have Gucci or Oleg Cassini or Pierre Cardin just rubber stamp them. They actually participated in the design of the interiors. So unlike some other things like the Tiffany clocks and Oldsmobile 98 Regencies that really were designed by the Oldsmobile design team and then Oldsmobile just paid a royalty to Tiffany, apparently in these cases, the designers were actually involved in their namesake interiors. So Gucci had a hand in their Gucci interior, and I guess this is what they picked, as crazy as it looks. And here's another picture of a different Gucci Hornet wagon, and this one, the vinyl appears to be more white as opposed to kind of cream colored, and that orangey red stripe appears more red. So perhaps the other car has just faded over time a little bit. Hard to say. These cars are now 50-ish years old, so but they still look good, and this is a interesting way to travel. Certainly very 1970s if that's what you wanted. And here's one more look at the instrument panel in this particular Hornet Sportabout. Notice the torque command automatic gear shift. That was something that AMC had for many years. This is a Chrysler torque flight by this point in 1973 in these AMC vehicles. AMC also did use Borg-Warner automatics in some cases. And you can see the Weather Eye climate control setup up there, that if you had air conditioning equipped cars, then you got a desert only setting for the air conditioning. AMC also didn't have any vacuum diaphragms in its HVAC systems, so you had to kind of manually open and close vents. It was all cable operated, and it worked just fine, but it certainly wasn't overly luxurious, and it didn't have a very luxurious feel to it. There was never an automatic climate control, as an example, in an AMC. And I do like the interesting glove box latch there off to the side that kind of looks a little bit like an afterthought, but it is there. Now, if we flip to the 1973 AMC Hornet brochure here, or it's just a generic AMC brochure, these are the pages for the Hornet in it, you can see that Gucci trimmed interior option there in the top left that you can get in your Hornet Sportabout. And it mentions that not only do you get this Gucci interior, but you get Gucci badging on the front fender. Ooh. Of course, if you didn't want this interior, there were other choices of interiors. You could get a luxury interior, the Sportabout DL, or Deluxe interior, with some of the choices that are shown at right. Now, interestingly, one of the things that you could get in your Hornet, as well as some other AMCs, was quick ratio steering. And no, I don't mean quick ratio power steering. I mean quick ratio manual steering of 20-1. So if you wanted to really exercise those arm muscles as you were parallel parking, you could opt for quick ratio manual steering. I don't know who would do that as opposed to just getting the power steering on these cars, but oh well, I guess it was an option, like I said. And when it came to the under hood department, you could get a number of engines in your Hornet, starting with the 232 cubic inch inline six-cylinder. One up from that was the 258 cubic inch inline six-cylinder. One up from that, the 304 cubic inch two-barrel V8. And then the top engine option was a 360 cubic inch V8. And the horsepower ratings are all right there that you can see. So there wasn't, a huge amount of horsepower here, but I will say the AMC 360 in particular is a very peppy engine. These cars are relatively light. The 232 six-cylinder with around 100 horsepower isn't going to be, all that great. But they are smooth. And that's one of the great things about AMC. They did use Chrysler Torque Flight transmissions by this point. They did make all their own engines, and they really were excellent and durable. The 232, 258 six-cylinders, the 304, 360 V8s. Again, AMC just really had some great powertrains. And it's amazing given that they really didn't have much of an engineering budget or capital budget, but they were able to string together some great engines and transmissions. And everybody that I know that's owned their powertrains or their cars with their powertrains has really just lauded them. They're smooth, powerful, reliable. It's amazing, again, what I think AMC did. And there you have it, the Hornet Sportabout Gucci Wagon. Now, 1973 was kind of starting to become the beginning of the end for American Motors, unfortunately. They had acquired Jeep from Kaiser not that long before this, and while Jeep is certainly super famous today and was really the reason why Chrysler wanted to acquire AMC in the 1980s, people just didn't think of Jeep as an everyday vehicle back in this point in the early 1970s. And so American Motors took on a lot of debt to finance that transaction, and it really saddled them with relatively high interest expense. Remember, this was the 1970s. Inflation was high. Interest rates were relatively high. So a lot of their cash flow went to service that debt. And then as a consequence, it couldn't go into research and development. It couldn't go into capital expenditures. And one could make an argument that it really was that purchase of Jeep that really kind of pushed them over the edge. Because once the Matador flopped in 1974, I should say the Matador Coupe flopped in 1974, and the Pacer sales started to wane after its introductory 1975 model year, the company was really in tough shape. And it's amazing that what Chrysler would end up really wanting out of AMC was perhaps what really kind of did them in and forced them into finding a partner. In any case, that's the story of the Hornet Sportabout Gucci Wagon. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Put a comment in the comment section. Thanks for watching.